The United States makes the UN work when it wants it to work. And that is exactly the way it should be, because the only question for the United States is what's in our national interest.
My name is John, and the International Criminal Court is back in session. It is January 19th, 2026, and once again, ladies and gentlemen, we got the fall of Assad all over again. It is the direct sequel to what had happened in December 2024, and to be quite honest with you, I knew this one was coming for quite some time. It was just a matter of when and not a matter of how, because when the Syrian regime of Bashar al-Assad had fallen back then, which was December 2024, I made a few videos on that before I stopped altogether because it seemed like it was done, at least for the time being. I knew that I would eventually have to come back to this topic because of how somewhat incomplete and unfinished the whole situation was. And here we are. It's January 19th, 2026, and as far as I know, it looks like the Syrian Democratic Forces are about to fall completely to the new regime of Abu Muhammad al-Jilani, also known as Ahmed al-Shara, which the international community refers to him as of right now. Because that's kind of his real name, I guess? But I still call him al-Jilani, and I also still refer to his current government as al-Nusra Front, because literally most of his important people within the government in Damascus are guys who once served or fought for al-Nusra Front or other Islamist groups like Jaish al-Islam, Ahrar al-Sham, even the Islamic State. So, it all began just like December 2024 in the city of Aleppo. During that time when the Assad regime fell, the SDF managed to take control over the northern neighborhoods of the city, including the Kurdish majority neighborhood of Sheikh Massoud, which I think the SDF held on to up until the recent events that had occurred earlier this month. And what happened was the SDF and the STG, the Syrian Transitional Government, which is the official government of the al-Nusra Front, had a big disagreement with the Kurds over integration of their forces into their government and into their army. And because of the fact that this turkey was taking so damn long, al-Nusra Front just felt, you know what, we had enough. We're just going to finish the job. And what do you know? They did. Within a matter of days, a week or two ago, al-Nusra Front takes full control of Aleppo City, undisputed control, for the first time ever. This is the first time Aleppo has been under any 100% control of anybody since 2012. It's been that long. We're talking about nearly 14 years. 14 years of Aleppo being somewhat broken up. And now it's finally whole again. Though a lot of rebuilding is going to have to be done in order to fully restore the city. But I digress. So after the fall of Aleppo City as a whole, the SDF, as you would imagine, were not happy about how things unfolded in the city, and they fired upon some drones into Aleppo from the town of Deir Hafir. And in response, the STG declared Deir Hafir and the town of Meskana as militarized zones. The U.S. military then sent a convoy over into Deir Hafir, probably to rescue some people because of the upcoming offensive, but also to probably inform their colleagues in the SDF that they were not coming to their rescue and that they were all but on their own. And then after that, al-Nusra started their offensive, and literally without almost any resistance whatsoever, Deir Hafir and Meskana fell in a matter of days. Literally almost without any sort of resistance. Mostly bloodless. And because of the successes they had in eastern Aleppo Governorate, the militants then declared Al-Tapqa, which is part of al-Raqqa Governorate, the former capital of ISIS, they declared it also a militarized zone. And within days as well, they also took Al-Tapqa. Now, it became very clear to the STG that SDF was just going to keep running away. So they decided to keep on going. They took all the villages along the entirety of the southern half of the Euphrates River, and for some reason they decided to cross the river, even though the SDF had blown up the bridges to the southern side. And despite their efforts somewhat, the rebels and their, tribesmen allies all took control of some suburbs and outskirts of al-Raqqa city. And once the STG or al-Nusra Front forces entered al-Raqqa from the west, battle was already over. Sure, there are some pockets of resistance here and there from the SDF within al-Raqqa, but everyone knew that the game was up and the city had fallen. In fact, there's videos right now showing the STG and all of their forces going into the city, along with a bunch of Arab citizens there celebrating, because they were no longer under the rule of the Kurds, who they definitely hate with a fire of 1,000 suns. Now here came the biggest indicator that the US was not going to save the SDF. It all came down to what would happen in Deir ez-Zor, because if al-Nusra Front were allowed to cross the Euphrates River in Deir ez-Zor Governorate, like, without any sort of resistance from U.S. air power, then it would be an indication that they were all but done with the SDF. Like, they were about to dispose of them once and for all. And what do you know? The Islamist militants crossed the Euphrates River, again, mostly without resistance, and they took control of every single town and village there is on the eastern side of Deir ez-Zor Governorate, including al-Basira, Hajin, which is all the way down here. This used to be a stronghold of ISIS, and also Baghus Fakani, which I think is somewhere here. It's like across from Abu Kamal. And also, Nusra also took control of the big oil fields here, which the U.S. had firm control over for the past, nearly decade. All the oil fields here that used to be the Assad regime's properties, along with the SDFs, were all taken by Nusra within one day, if not hours, to say the least. And then after that, they decided to go north, towards the city of al-Hasaka. And so far, they have achieved great successes there. They have taken Markada, Shadadi, and have also reached the outskirts of al-Hasaka from the south. There are reports that the SDF are going to put up a resistance to the al-Nusra Front militants here, but I honestly don't think the battle's going to even last that long. It's going to be a massacre. And once that is all done, the war in Syria, for the most part, will pretty much be freaking over. And after that, we will also see the fall of Kobani, also known as Ain al-Arab, and that will be the end. Other than the Druze and maybe the Israelis here in Golan Heights, the war in Syria is effectively over. The fact that the United States has not done anything to save the SDF is once again another reminder of just how, of a bad idea it is for any foreign proxy to bet on the United States. Like, when the United States feels like they don't need you anymore, like when you're completely expendable, you go in the trash can and they will abandon you to your fate. And I wouldn't be surprised if what we're seeing right now happening in Syria is going to also happen to President Zelensky and his regime in Kiev. Now, I do think that this is still a long way from now, even though people can say, oh, but Ukraine is still in control of over 80% of their country. How could this be? Well, the thing is, you just don't know. The Assad regime controlled 65% of Syria at its peak before its collapse, and it looked like he was going nowhere. It looked like he had won the war. But then he just fell, just like that. Within nearly 2 weeks, he was gone. And now the same is happening again to the SDF. The SDF is probably going to be disappearing for good by the end of January, if not February at the latest. Like, there's not really a lot to describe this whole situation. This is another case of the Kurds falling for it once again. The lies and false promises that the U.S. government has given to them regarding maybe a future Kurdistan, well, guess what? You got duped again. United States doesn't give a rat's ass about you. They only care about the oil and the wheat that you have in your possession, just to prevent the Assad regime from ever, regaining its footing. And that was really what this was all about in the end. The United States did not care for the well-being of the Kurds. They only wanted to use them for the purpose of preventing Assad from rebuilding Syria. That was it. And once Assad and Iran were gone from the country, the United States had next to no reason to stay there. Oh, but what about ISIS? Oh, the United States doesn't give a shit about ISIS. ISIS, just like the SDF, are nothing more than useful pawns in the greater geopolitical game. They're short-term actors. You see where this is going? And Ukraine is more or less the same. When Ukraine's time is up, you will see it collapse as quickly as the SDF and Assad did. I assure you, it will happen the exact same way. Like a direct sequel. Like, you will know, what's happening once it does actually happen. Like, we've seen this movie before time and time again. We've seen this happen in Vietnam, Afghanistan. We saw it almost happen in Iraq. We now have seen it in Syria. And also, we've seen it happen to Yemen as well. And perhaps soon Sudan. Now, why do I bring up Yemen and Sudan? Well, let me explain, okay? So, the United Arab Emirates, which you guys know is Israel's #1 Arab ally other than Jordan and Egypt, have been backing some very sketchy separatist groups, including the STC, or Southern Transitional Council, in Yemen. They wanted to break away from Yemen, as I talked about in one of my previous videos from a couple weeks ago, and it didn't work out. They not only lost all of their territories, but now they are completely in exile. And as far as I know, the Saudis are now going to try to screw over the United Arab Emirates again in Sudan and Somalia. They backed the separatist groups in Puntland, Somaliland, and Sudan. Also in Libya too. But I think the Saudis are trying to get Khalifa Haftar to distance himself from the UAE before they can do anything with the proxies there. Because, as I said, Haftar is backed by the UAE. But he's also backed by Saudi Arabia and Egypt too. So yeah, that one's going to be a little complicated, a little more difficult for them to break the Emirates away from, but I think they're going to get it done. Because Saudi Arabia wants to show to every single Sunni Muslim in the Arabian Peninsula, if not the greater Middle East and North Africa, that they are the bosses. They run the show in this area of the world. It's their sphere of influence. And they made that clear with the whole collapse of the STC in Yemen. And to also show that they're very serious, they blocked the United Arab Emirates' ability to support the RSF via air. They can no longer fly any of their supplies directly to Sudan through Saudi Arabia anymore. That's just not going to happen. They will have to go around it somehow, some way. And it will take more time but also it will make it a military target to those who don't like them. So, for instance, United Arab Emirates will have to take off from here all the way down south, and then they would fly through Kenya or Somalia, through Ethiopia, and then they would be in Sudan. I think they wouldn't go through Ethiopia because then they'd be entering junta territory in Sudan, and as you guys know, that would result in their planes being shot down. So they would have to go through Kenya and South Sudan and maybe Uganda in order to get to their guys here. But yeah, I feel like Saudi Arabia is now going to double down on their efforts in Sudan and Somalia to prevent the UAE from having any strongholds there, but also to prevent these countries from breaking apart into multiple pieces. Not really out of the goodness of their hearts, but rather to keep things stable for their own sakes. They got a business to run, and they don't want that business to be disrupted in any fucking way. So, with the fall of the SDF incoming in Syria, I think we can expect the al-Nusra Front government to be somewhat turbulent. I don't know how harsh their overall rule is going to be once they take complete control of northeastern Syria. I mean, some say it's bad already, or a little better than the Assad regime. But whatever happens, if you're a minority, like a Shia Arab, Alawite, Christian, I'd recommend you pack up your bags and go to Iraq. You are screwed. Like, get out. Like, yeah, you better be heading for the borders, guys. Shit's about to get ugly. It will also especially get ugly if the jihadis here start to fight with each other. That is, of course, if the militants aren't disarmed, that is, which Jolani has sought to do upon taking power in December 2024. So with that being said, guys, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Tell me in the comment section below what you think of the fall of the SDF, aka the fall of Assad 2.0. And I'll see you all next time. So take care of yourselves, stay safe, and have a good day. Bye-bye.